So you all really liked the travel vlog I did back in spring when I went on my big Europe trip, so I figured, hey, I have another international trip coming up, which is also ridiculous to do 2 in 1 year. I'm very fortunate. Let's do another kind of gaming travel vlog. And so here we are, right before I'm about to leave. I'm standing up and not wearing makeup because I'm literally about to leave my house. But I wanted to film this introduction before I left. And hi, for those who might not know me, my name's Alex, aka Qualitea, and welcome back to the channel. But yeah, I really loved making that travel video last time I did it. I thought it was a good mix between tips and tricks and vlogs, but since I'm not really changing a lot of what I'm bringing this time in terms of accessories and equipment, I figured maybe we'll just try to make this one more vloggy, I guess, if that makes sense. With a good mix of gaming vlogs slash travel vlog. I figured that would be kind of a fun thing to do, and after doing the game show vlog, I started really liking this style of video, so I figured let's give it another shot, but international. That being said though, in order to keep it gaming focused, I wanted to impose a challenge on myself. The biggest difference between this trip and the last trip I went on is, well, one, this one's a much longer flight. If anybody can guess where I'm going in the comments, try. I'm very curious if anybody will be able to get it right before I share later on. But aside from the flight, I actually have a lot more downtime on this trip than I did my last one. I'm not moving between place to place as often, so I'm gonna have a lot more time to chill and play games. So I figured in an attempt to finish a few more games before the end of 2023, and an attempt to, whittle down my backlog even more, I am going to make it a goal to play every single game that I bring on this trip at least once for at least a half hour. A half hour might not seem like much, but again, I do also want to be out there enjoying the trip, but I want to give everything at least a little bit of a shot, and I know in a lot of cases, I'm going to be playing them for more than a half hour. So I have 7 games that I'm bringing with me. I thought 7 was a good amount. I have a good mix of multiplayer games to play with the people that I'm traveling with, some more cozy experiences, RPGs, and some visual novels, which I'm really excited to get into actually. So I'm just gonna start out with the classic, I can't travel without this game, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, of course. It is the way. I have been very into Mario Kart since doing my Mario Kart tier list. It's just been on the brain all the time, so I'm hoping to get some races in, and this is always just a travel staple for me. Even if I'm going on a short trip, you never know who's gonna want to play Mario Kart. It's easy to pick up and play, so definitely one that's coming along. Another staple that I've been really feeling into recently, Animal Crossing New Horizons. I think it's because my mom has started to play again more recently, so I feel like I need to jump back in too. I already gave her a loan in terms of bells, so I'm like, you know what? I kind of am feeling that vibe. I always get that feeling this time of the year. I don't know if it's because I like decorating for the holidays or what, but I think I might spend some time for Turkey Day / decorating for the holidays, because where I'm going, it's a very different climate than where I'm at right now. That's hint number 2, and I feel like I'm gonna be missing some of that good old Thanksgiving Christmassy vibes of my hometown, so I'm gonna try to emulate that in Animal Crossing, maybe. Another multiplayer game that I am just really hoping someone on this trip will play with me. It's not my partner's favorite game, but I love it. Dokapon Kingdom Connect. I adore this game. I love Dokapon. I think I've talked about it on the channel before, but Dokapon Kingdom is one of my favorite multiplayer games. It takes Mario Party and RPGs and stuffs it all together in this one very exciting, very fun, crazy, chaotic multiplayer experience, and I love it. And the nice thing is I can play against random people online, so not all is lost if none of my travel companions want to play with me, but it'd be nice to play with people because I never get to play Dokapon with people, and I love this game. Another cozy one that I have not finished and I actually haven't played in a while since I've been on my gaming slump, but Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life. I adore this game. I've talked about this one a lot on the channel, so I won't spend too much time talking about it, but it's your typical farming sim. I'm in year 2 in my save file on this one, so if you don't know how this game works, every year is actually a different stage of your life as a farmer, and I'm in year 2, so I'm still pretty early on in the game. I finished the original GameCube one, but I feel like I need to finish the one on Switch as well. I don't think I'll finish this on the trip, but I want to make a little bit of progress at the very least. And now for my most recent pickup, which I could not resist not playing over the past few days, Super Mario RPG! Super Mario RPG is one of my favorite games of all time. Sometimes it'll shoot up to the #1 spot. I adore it. I love everything about it. And so far, this remake is delightful. So originally we were actually going to leave for this trip on the 17th, the day this came out, but we didn't end up doing that just because of other circumstances. So I was able to pick this up and spend a lot of time with it on the Friday, and it was so good. The revamped music, the wonderful graphics, I'm so in love with it. I'm about halfway through already, which is more than I wanted to be through the game at this stage, but I couldn't stop playing it. I couldn't stop playing it. So this is actually the game that's currently in my Switch, so this is probably gonna be the game that I play first when we get to the airport or on our flight. So this one, I might finish on this trip, we'll see. And now we get into two games that I actually have not played. One is an old pickup, one is a newer pickup, but first we have AI Somnium Files. I think I took this with me to Europe and then I never played it. So now we're gonna try again. I've actually watched a lot of playthroughs of this game and I know I'm gonna like it. I just haven't been able to sit down and play it yet. And given that it's kind of a shorter visual novel, I think I'll be able to make some good progress on it, so I'm really excited. I'll be sharing my thoughts on this as we go along on the trip. And then finally, this is a new pickup that I haven't shown on the channel yet. It'll be my fall pickups video when I film that when I get back. But so here's a little spoiler for that. Ghost Trick! I got this copy from Play Asia. I am so excited. I have so many friends that really love this game, and I've been wanting to try it out for so long. So when they announced it for the Switch, I was ecstatic. The time was finally here. And yeah, so I'm really excited to get into this one. I actually just opened it yesterday. And this is another short visual novel that I really genuinely think that if I have enough time to play games like I think I do, I might finish it on the trip, which would be really cool. So the goal is honestly finish 2 of these games that have like natural endings to them. And it'll probably end up being Super Mario RPG and Ghost Trick, and then starting AI Somnium Files. And then all the others I'm gonna just kind of play as I feel like it, but that is the goal. That is the goal. So I'm hoping that, given the time that I have in this trip, I'll be able to play all of these games at least for a little bit. I haven't had a lot of time to play games recently. That includes Switch and PC. So I'm hoping that with all of the downtime that I'm gonna have on this trip, I'll have some time for games as well. So that's the hope. But I need to finish packing. I have to get all my electronics into my carry-on and then go to the airport. So I will see you after this travel montage, ? I don't know how I'm gonna do this. You'll see me later, but I'll figure it out. Bye. I went to Sydney, Australia. It was an absolute incredible time. I love Australia. I want to go back at some point in time. Just this trip was amazing. And I did have ample time for gaming as well. So for a little background on the trip, we were actually there for a wedding. My partner's sister was getting married to her now husband in Australia, and it was an incredible 2 weeks of wedding festivities, exploring Sydney, and then going up to Hamilton Island for the rest of our time, and it was amazing. So especially in comparison to my Europe trip where I was bouncing around a lot every single day, I had a little bit more free time and relaxation during this trip, which was really great because I was actually able to play games. Not only that, but with almost 20 hours of being in the air, I played a decent amount of games on the plane. So I showed you what games I brought with me like 2 weeks ago before I even left. So how did I do? Was I able to play every game that I brought? So let's just kind of go day by day through the trip and kind of give you a perspective of the games that I brought, when I was feeling like playing games, all that kind of stuff, in hopes that maybe it'll help you make an informed decision when you go on your next big trip, how many games to bring, and if bringing games is even something that you really want to do. So as I said, our first plane rides were long. From Detroit to LA, it was about 5 hours, and then from LA to Sydney, it was another 13 and a half, 14 hours. So I had a lot of time to play games. From Detroit to LA, I played a little bit of Super Mario RPG. Since that game had just come out right before we left, I was very into it, of course. Honestly, the first day that I picked up the game, I played a lot of it. I think I mentioned that earlier, but I played a decent amount of it on the planes, not just on the way to LA, but also at the start of the plane ride to Sydney. So the whole thing with the LA to Sydney plane is we left at night so we would get there in the morning. So I did have to sleep on the plane. So that did cut out quite a bit of time, but honestly, it was by far for the best, because that's a lot of jet lag to have to deal with. So I played a few hours of Super Mario RPG. I didn't really play anything else because that was just the game I was feeling then. And then I went to sleep and woke up in Australia the next morning. I also watched a lot of movies on that flight just because sometimes playing games on the airplane makes me feel a little sick depending on how smooth of a flight it was. Thankfully, our flights getting to Australia were very, very smooth, but I still wanted to also take advantage of all of Delta's free movies, so I watched The Labyrinth and both Mamma Mia's on the way there. And so when we were in Sydney, it was pretty busy pretty much all the time. We got to our Airbnb and met up with all of the rest of the family, and we immediately started doing stuff. We went out to breakfast, we went on this huge, incredible beach walk, and it was like the perfect first day in Australia. I loved it. I did lawn bowls, which was incredible, so fun. I don't remember if I got any footage of it, but it was a blast. So that was basically the first full day. By the time we got to the end of it, the jet lag had set in, and I was ready to pass out. And I did. So no more video games for that very first full day in Australia. The second day in Australia, I didn't really play anything then either. We had a whole bunch of other wedding prep things to do that morning, and later on in the day, we kind of started doing our first little bit of exploring kind of on our own by going to the opera house, taking the ferries, and doing all of that. We did find some really cute gachapon machines, and I was able to get a little Luna magnet who looks like, it was pretty cute. It was pretty cute. Like the magnet almost looks exactly like my cat. So it was perfect. And yeah, we did a lot of the more touristy things. We went to the opera bar, which was super fun, looked at the opera house. It was just a really nice, relaxing time exploring. But no video games. Thursday was pretty similar. Thursday was actually the first of 2 wedding ceremonies. There were 2 ceremonies. We had a traditional Indian ceremony and a Western ceremony. So this was the Indian ceremony. Gorgeous, phenomenal day. I didn't play any video games that day either. Friday was our day of rest, as we like to call it, the day in between the 2 ceremonies. And TJ and I ended up going to Luna Park, which is terrifying. I'll post a picture of the gate like here or something, or some kind of video, something. But it was a blast. It's kind of like this old amusement park. It has this very cool aesthetic to it. I love it. For dinner, we had a really, really nice dinner with some of his family, and it was great. And then I tried to play video games when I got back, and it didn't really work all that well. I started playing Super Mario RPG again, and I got into one battle, and then I fell asleep with my Switch still on. So that wasn't my proudest moment, but I was beat by that point in time. Just all of the busyness of the week was starting to catch up, and I just had no energy left to play video games. Saturday, no video games because it was another ceremony. Also beautiful, also wonderful, super incredible, but no games. TJ was actually playing a lot more video games than me at this point in time because he had a lot more downtime in terms of getting ready for these ceremonies. So I'm a little envious of him because he got to play lots of Super Mario RPG. And then Sunday was our last full day in Sydney. We did a big brunch with all of the wedding people, and ultimately we just did a little bit more exploring. Went back to the opera bar, kind of took some other people around the opera house, went to the botanical gardens, lots of really, really fun stuff. And then finally, I was like, I have to do this before we leave. I played Mario Kart. I finally played Mario Kart that night. Up until that point, I had been exclusively playing Super Mario RPG because that was the vibe. But I was like, I need to play on Sydney Sprint before I leave Sydney. It makes sense. So I did. I played a few rounds of Mario Kart just by myself, just for the vibes, just to hear the Sydney Sprint sound. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And then I think I played maybe a little bit more Mario RPG that night. and tucked it in because we had a long day the next day. Monday morning, we wake up pretty early so we can catch a flight to Hamilton Island, which is an island in the Great Barrier Reef, so that was already really, really exciting. And the nice thing about there is it was kind of more of a resorty area than like a big city tourist kind of deal, so we had a lot of relaxation. So the first day we get there, it's a pretty chill day. We're just getting our bearings, and I think that day I played Mario Kart and Dokapon Kingdom, which I was so glad I could convince TJ and our other friend Liam, who came with us, to play. I had been wanting to play this game the whole time, and I was met with a little resistance, but we finally did. So we got a lot of Mario Kart time and a lot of Dokapon time. Unfortunately, once again, I got too sleepy to continue, so I went to bed and we had to quit our Dokapon game kind of right in the middle of it, only after a week, but it was still pretty fun, and I'm glad that I had at least a little bit of time to play it. Over the next few days, we did a lot of beach sitting, a lot of pool sitting, and I also got to snorkel in the Great Barrier Reef, which was pretty incredible, I have to say. We also had a really nice balcony that I just kind of sat on and would play video games in the morning and drink my tea, and it was so nice. So on our big kind of sit by the pool day, I did bring my Switch with me actually, and I decided I wanted to start Ghost Trick. Ghost Trick, I think I had mentioned before, it has been a game that I've been wanting to start so badly, and I thought that this trip was the perfect time. And it was the perfect game to sit and play by the pool, honestly. It was more visual novel-y, it was just nice, relaxing, it was really chill. And I got hooked immediately into Ghost Trick. So that was, I think, Wednesday of our trip, and I continued to play Ghost Trick every single day for the rest of the trip. I was hooked in that game, and I knew it was a shorter game, so I felt kind of inspired to try to finish it, which was pretty cool. So I played Ghost Trick by the pool, Ghost Trick on the balcony, Ghost Trick on the planes coming back. It was great. But so I got a pretty good amount of time playing Ghost Trick that day, probably like an hour or so. Once Friday hit, it was time to leave the beautiful Hamilton Island and head back to Sydney for one more night. So I don't think I played any video games this day because it was a travel day, and the flights to and from Hamilton Island were very turbulent and not very good for my stomach, so I did not play any games either which way on that flight. But we got back to Sydney, got to our hotel, and we were kind of just chilling and talking, and that night we actually went to Benelog, which is the restaurant kind of within the Sydney Opera House. It was incredible, it was amazing, oh my gosh. I have never had such fancy food in my entire life, and I will never forget it. And that was our last night in Sydney, which thus then began the trek home. And getting to Sydney was actually really easy. It was a lot easier than I thought it would be. The planes were not bad. Getting back was a travesty. And the only thing keeping me together was playing Ghost Trick. We got on our flight pretty early in the morning, Sydney time, like 9-ish, I think, and then we were on that plane for another 13 and a half hours. I wanted to sleep. I really wanted to sleep, but I could not. It was not happening for me. So I ended up playing probably about 6 hours of Ghost Trick on that plane. Yeah, it was a lot. I almost finished it on the flight, but I figured I had to try to sleep and was very unsuccessful. So I ended up watching more movies. I think I watched the Dungeons and Dragons movie, I watched Blackberry, and then on the later flight, I watched Fellowship of the Ring. So that was nice. Then once we got to LAX, I was dead. I could not function anymore. I could not do anything anymore. And I wanted to get back home. So on that final plane ride, no video games, only Fellowship of the Ring, and just a little bit of Shrek because I needed something in my ears as we were landing. I don't know why I went with Shrek. I don't know, but it helped. And finally, we got back to Detroit on Saturday around 5:30. And I was relieved. Sad that my trip was over, but relieved to be back home and not on an airplane anymore. 2 days of travel was a lot, but it was great for getting my games done. So, now that I've given you the overview of the trip, how did I do in terms of the games that I brought versus the games that I actually played? So I brought 7 games with me on this trip, and I played 4 of them, which is honestly a little bit better than I was expecting. I was hoping that I could kind of dip into a bunch of other ones, but once I started Ghost Trick, I was stuck on that game. It was honestly, I think, the game I needed in that moment. Super Mario RPG as well, but because I've already played that game in its original form, Ghost Trick, which was a brand new experience for me, very nostalgic of the DS era, which was honestly, I think, what I've been needing recently, it was perfect and I was hooked. But at the very least, with the 4 that I played, I think I got a good variation. I had multiplayer games and single player experiences, RPG visual novel. It felt really, really nice. So I didn't get to play Animal Crossing, which I was a little bummed out about, but not as bummed out at the fact that I didn't start AI Somnium Files and I did not finish or just continue with Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life. The nice thing about Animal Crossing and A Wonderful Life, those are games I feel I can pick up at any time, but I was really disappointed that I didn't get to start AI Somnium Files. So that's hopefully my goal over the holiday season. So I guess in terms of games, I guess I did overpack just a little bit. So now the question is, for future trips, do I think I would take less games? I think maybe yes, but at the same time, I also wonder if I take less games, I'm still gonna play less games. I think a lot of it really depends on the type of trip you're going. Like, as I said earlier, my Europe trip was so bam, 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 I barely had any time to play games. The only time I had to play any games was when really I was in Paris, or more towards the end of the trip where I was ready to go home. So I think it really varies. If I were going to like Florida or like some nice place where I was gonna do a lot of sitting on the beach or sitting by a pool, I think I'm much more likely to play more video games in that circumstance than if I'm constantly sightseeing and doing other things. So my biggest advice, if you're somebody who's wondering how many games you should bring on a trip, or if you're even wondering if you should bring games on a trip, I always say it's better safe to be sorry. Bring them, and then if you don't play them, then you don't play them. But I also think that you shouldn't consider bringing like your whole Switch collection, because there's no way that you're going to play all of those games. Think about what games you're really in the mood for, or games that you want to try out and get out of your backlog, and I think that's a really good way to go about it. I also think it's important to consider the length of your trip and the type of trip. As I said, is it going to be busy? Is it going to have a lot of downtime? And then kind of base it off of that. Regardless, I'm still proud that I was able to get 4 games in. That was a lot more, I think, than Europe. I think in Europe I exclusively played Octopath 2, so I mean, there you go. So we're improving. But anyways, I really hope you enjoyed this kind of look into my Australia trip. Again, it was marvelous. I absolutely loved it, and I would love to go back someday. But who knows where my next worldly adventure is? I don't know. It's gonna be a while because I need to kind of refill my bank account. But regardless, if you like these kinds of videos, please let me know. I've been really liking the vlog style videos, especially after my gaming convention one and the first travel one. So if you like these vloggy videos, let me know, and maybe I'll think of others to make or something like that. And of course, if you're not already subscribed and would like to be subscribed, all you have to do is hit that button, and I'd really appreciate it. That's gonna do it for me. I am still very tired from all the travel because I got immediately sick after coming back, which is why this video is coming out way later than I wanted it to. But hey, so I am going to actually film another video and then get some rest. But until the next one, everybody, goodbye. Boop.